Welcome to the FarmBits podcast.
FarmBits is proudly produced by the Nebraska Digital Agriculture team and hosted by students at the University of Nebraska.
The FarmBits podcast comes to you each week to discuss the trends, the realities, and the value of digital agriculture.
Through interviews with experts, producers, and innovators from across the agriculture industry, we hope that you step away from each episode with new practical knowledge of digital agriculture technology. Hello, FarmBits followers, and welcome to another episode of the FarmBits podcast. I'm Natasha and Rana.
And I'm Rana Farasati, and we are glad to have you with us as we begin our discussion on aquaculture.
Today, we have the pleasure to talk with Azellia Alma Shafira, also known as Sally.
She is the CEO of Banoo, which is Indonesian technology startup focusing on sustainable fish production.
Hi everyone, I'm Azellia Alma Shafira, but people call me Sally. I'm from Indonesia, born and raised, and I co-founded and also I'm leading an aquaculture technology startup called Banoo. So Banoo is doing things to solve the productivity issues in aquaculture, especially in calm water aquaculture such as tilapia, catfish, shrimp, and other commodities, especially in Indonesia, by producing Internet of Things or IoT-based solutions such as microbubble aerators, water quality sensors, and also remote monitoring system, so that the fish farmers can produce more with less costs, less water waste, and also less carbon emission. And this company was founded in 2018, so it's been a long time, but we started as a research during our undergraduate program, and it continues until now. And the co-founding team is actually pretty diverse. I myself did not come from aquaculture or agriculture background, or even like a technology background. I came from management background. I studied management in undergraduate and continued my master's in London in MSc in Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Management from Imperial College London. And some of my co-founders, like they all came from different backgrounds as well. My co-founder and COO comes from mechanical engineering, and then one came from electrical engineering, and one came from aquaculture. So we all just gathered our knowledge together to build this company from the ground, basically, until now we have commercialized in Indonesia and some other countries as well.
Really cool.
That is really interesting that you have such a diverse team and you also have like quite different background than aquaculture, but it's still useful to manage the aquaculture itself. So I was like curious, like what makes you interested in the first place, like to jump in this aquaculture industry, especially like in Indonesia?
Yeah, it's quite an unexpected turn of event for me, because I never imagined or like didn't have any experience in the field. But it started from joining some competitions as a student. We students are very ambitious in fulfilling our CV and etc. And then it was actually because the co-founders are my friends, or like friends of friends.
Yeah.
So Fajar, our COO and co-founder, who basically founded or invented the technology, the microbubble technology, he started as a research assistant of one of the lecturers, and then he wanted to spin it off, like the technology, into something that's more commercial. So it's shifting from research focus to commercial focus. And then he wanted to join this accelerator program, but he didn't have any big business background, and asked some people to help him. And then we just like my friends introduced me to him, and then he pitched the idea of using this technology for aquaculture. And I have always been interested in food tech because I love eating. And then I live nearby like a rice or like a paddy field, like a rice farm. And I've always wondered like what goes behind the scene of what I'm eating, like what's on my plate every day. So I thought like just want to try this industry because I used to join competitions, but it's mostly about business or like economy, and it's a breath of fresh air for me. And then I started to do the research about the industry and just felt like, oh, there's so many potential, but like lack of management is one of the biggest things. So when we won some of the competitions, like global competitions, like Cisco Global Problem Solver Challenge, and then Thought for Food and MIT Solve, we got this exposure and also some kind of funding to further our research. And as I get deeper into the industry, it fell deeper into the industry.
So, Sally, can you talk a little bit more about Banoo? And then, so the industry is introducing the microfish, right?
Yeah.
And the fiscal, can I say
Mhm.
fiscal?
Like, go.
And can you tell us a little bit more about those technologies?
Yeah. So actually, the microfish, the microbubble aerator, it wasn't meant for aquaculture. So the research was conducted in a water waste management. And then we feel that, or like Fajar felt that, um, he doesn't think like it's like lucrative business. Like the market is not very big. And then we just discussed, and then one of my friends was from aquaculture, right? Like he studied aquaculture, and he felt like let's just try this for fish farms. And then we got like a collaboration from one of a company in Indonesia to do some CSR. And then we did the research on aquaculture, and it gives quite a good impact to the fish growth. And then we designed it um from differently from the research, because the research was for water waste, and then we designed it especially for the fish farmers so that it will be easier to install, easier to maintain, and then also will be more efficient in terms of energy. So that was something that we did, or like the research was quite a long time, like about 2 to 3 years, and we launched it last year. And then Fisco, the water quality sensor, it's actually one is for the sensor, so it senses the pH, temperature, oxygen level, etc. But it also automates microfish so that microfish doesn't have to operate 24 hours, but only when the water quality is bad. For example, if the sensor reads the oxygen level to be below probably like 4 ppm, then it will signal the microfish to turn on, and then to turn it off after it has stabilized, after the oxygen is stable. And then the third one is our mobile app. So it's just a remote monitoring for our hardware that's in the field. So it can let the farmers know whether the microfish is on or off, and what's the real-time condition of the pond. They can see it from, so Fisco can send the data to the app, and it's also a warning system. So when probably there's an electricity cutoff, or like if there's something wrong or the pH drops suddenly or the oxygen drops suddenly, they will give like the application will give like a notification to the farmer so they can troubleshoot it immediately, because it's basically something that we have iterated so many times because we tested it to the farmers directly, and we've got so many feedback. We started to too advanced. That's why we uh ended up not launching everything at once. So we have launched microfish but not Fisco, because apparently you don't need not everyone needs a sensor for their operations. And it's much more affordable for microfish, right? So they just need an oxygen or like an aerator that is more affordable and energy efficient. So for Fisco and our mobile app is now in our R&D process. We're planning to launch it next year. And yeah, it's like our anatomy actually. So microfish is like our lung, it supplies oxygen in deep water, and Fisco is like the brain because it reads, it senses the water quality and gives signal to other hardware. And the mobile app is like, you know, just the mobile app. So it's like a remote monitoring system so that farmers don't have to go to the farm every day. With this three technology, like the key word is a technology that does not replace people, but it helps them, because we don't want technology to replace their work, but to help their day-to-day work so that they don't have to come to the farm every day. They can cut some operational costs and they can harvest more with less mortality risks, which is the biggest risk in aquaculture. Yeah, so that's a bit of a motivation and how we came up with the idea. And it's actually a pivot, right, from a pretty different industry, but it works. And it's actually had a great impact in terms of fish growth and then the wastewater management. So like the wastewater is not very damaging to the environment, and also it saves energy, and also carbon emission, because it's like 40% more energy efficient and produces less carbon dioxide from the aquaculture operations. Yeah, so that's a bit of about what Banoo is doing.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I really like it, all the technology that you are doing and providing to the farmers, because I can see it's really sustainable. Your industry focus in a sustainable production, so it's really cool. And one thing that you pointed that I really like it as well is when you said the technology that you are developing is not to replace people, it's just to help them and to improve the management and the activities as well. So I was just wondering, do you face any challenge to with especially small growers to introduce the technology to them or to make them accept those technology?
Yeah, of course we did. Like that's the biggest point of challenge that we had, even more than the technology itself. So like we felt that developing the technology, doing the prototyping is like 10 times easier than actually introducing it to the market. One is because we assumed that the market is not very educated about technology, and we were very wrong about that. They're actually very smart. Like the fish farmers are very advanced in terms, like they know what they're doing, right? And they know the technology. They've been inventing things themselves, like especially aerators. So when we tell them that we produce aerators, like they are asking very technical questions that sometimes we didn't even know the answer to back then. So it was quite a learning curve for us, because we ended up learning so much from the farmers instead. So we started to develop this open-mindedness and openness to feedback, which is very critical to our development, you know, curve. And then the second one is because, as I said, the why we came up with the term not to replace people, it was because of something that we endured at the first years of our R&D, because people are very skeptical about AI, IoT, like that kind of thing, because in their mind, technology will come to replace them, right? And in some cases, they do, because like as we know, like some technologies like auto feeders or like auto what, automatic what, artificial intelligence, blah blah, AI based what, and they do replace some of the work the farmers are doing, like because of automatic feeders, they don't have to have manual labor or like people to give the fish feed to the fish. So yeah, they can cut like labor costs. So there's some kind of like a tension between the technology producers and farmers at first, because they always think that we are coming to replace you. So that's why our campaign has always been, since that point on, to let them know that we're not replacing you, we're helping you. We want you to still have your job, but you don't have to do it this you don't have to do the manual labor too hard. Like they don't have to come to the farm and then produce the same harvest, but with less, effort, with less energy wasted. So that's the main thing that we have to educate them, because not everyone will accept technology easily, because yeah, they're afraid to be replaced. And then the third one is, um, it's a very traditional industry. So we have to do a grassroots marketing basically to um, do a market penetration. We have to go to each farm, go to the field, and lots of the farms are in rural areas. So it took a lot of time. And even during the prototyping, if you want to do some pilot projects with the farmers, aquaculture is like, it takes time. One cycle usually is like in 3 or 4 months before the farmers harvest. So if you want to know the impact of our technology, we have to wait for 3 to 4 months for them to harvest. That's why it took years for us, because the trial and error is not as quick as maybe like social media or Facebook, when you can just do a survey and just do A/B testing, and for 1 day and it's over. We have to do A/B testing for one cycle. So that's a bit of a challenge. A lot of operational challenges and climate challenges. Like we cannot predict the weather. Some of the research failed just because of like a sudden raining season, or like unpredictable weather, or like a disease outbreak, something that we cannot control. And it's something that we learn along the way, because we were undergrad students, like we don't know everything at once. So lots of learning, and how we persevere until now is just because our team is very passionate about what we're doing. And um uh we we all have the same, like a shared vision. Like we all different have different backgrounds, but somehow, despite having other, maybe during that time they have another job, or they have another commitment, they still have time to develop the product and go to the market to do the research. So that's like one of the keys of how Banoo is surviving, is the people itself, delegate themselves.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts and the experience that Banu had so far in developing to the farmers, because it must be like so difficult at first, because like to change like what farmers did, because they usually do it like I don't know, like for a long years, and then we came up and introduced something new. It really takes time for them like to finally accept you and like trust you, and like continuing what you're doing and your suggest, right? And it's also surprising for me, like you said the farmers actually know more about the technology, because we usually think that it's gonna be hard to introduce technology to them, because they basically don't have the knowledge about the technology, and also like not so open due to the things that you told before. Also, like they're afraid to get replaced by the robots. That's another thing that I also see on the ground. And it is always interesting that you all have a passion, that strong passion to improve Banu in the future. I'm also interested to know, like, do you think by investing this technology in a small scale fish farmers will be a win-win solution, and maybe like in the future it could also increase the national production of aquaculture, maybe in Indonesia or any other countries that you propose?
Yeah, I think it's a the best way to invest in the nationwide aquaculture industry is through the smallholder farmers, because 90% or like even more than 90% of the production of aquaculture is from smallholder farmers. So that's why it's just the right thing to start from the ground up, from the smallholders, and then to maybe middle to the middle up. And one thing that we realized is that it's not that difficult once we know the key to the market, because like once we succeed in convincing like one farmer in one in one area, it becomes like a ripple effect, and then the others will follow him, because the aquaculture industry is a very much, what is it, a word of mouth based industry. So like once a technology is working and someone heard of it, so it becomes a big thing. And it's something that we realized when we started selling the product. And well, yeah, there are some big players for the productivity itself, but it's just less than 10%. So it doesn't add much, even to the productivity, like the scale. And what's also interesting is that small scale is a relative subject, because even in Indonesia, small scale can be a farmer that owns like 100 hectares of farm. That can be counted as
Okay.
smallholder, because it's like a household, like it's privately managed. It's managed by just 1 to 2 people, and they're still very much a local, like they just produce domestically, and they're still called small because Indonesia is that big. Like they can just produce this for their domestic market, and they're still very profitable. So that's why it's a very interesting industry, because sometimes smallholder is pretty advanced in itself, and they can export to other countries as well. So yeah, it's an interesting insight that I found out in the market.
Yeah, that's really nice. I'm also like curious. You mentioned that Indonesia is a big countries, right? It's an archipelago and have like a lot of islands and provinces. And how do you define like the market first? Like, for example, this to know like which province that you should go first, like to help the small scale fish, because we have like more than 30 provinces, I would say.
Yeah, this is where I come in.
Yeah.
So I always do some kind of like market research,
Mhm.
and like we always have this evaluation like every month on like how or like who to target, and what's the condition, like the economic condition for each country, each region in the country. And so we decided on where to first, it's like we decided where to prioritize to do the marketing based on the aquaculture production, and also the number of fish farmers, and the electricity and internet penetration. Because some of the farmers that have reached out to us, unfortunately we cannot cater to them yet because of the electricity problem, because we still use electricity, right? We're not using like solar panel technology yet. So we have to do the analysis, we have to analyze the requirements, we have the SOP in place on where to prioritize. And then during the second phase, because we have had like the exposure, so some people approach us first, and of course we accept it. Most of the time we just have this priority, oh, you're from this area, so we have some kind of promotions and etc. So that's where I come in, because every region has to be treated differently, and for the priority areas we have to make sure that we get to them quickly. So that's why we have different promotions, we have different approach, we have different channels like marketing channels and sales channels for each of these regions. So despite having, like, Indonesia is a big aquaculture country, right? But like every region has different commodities, has different like a favorite species that they grow. So this is also how I uh decide on the marketing or like the business strategy. Is like, okay, this area is big on shrimp, this area is big on tilapia, and this area is big on probably pangasius. And okay, so what should we prioritize as of now in terms of business profitability? If we're prioritizing on shrimp, then we push more our marketing and advertising towards shrimp farms. And for the different month, it can be for tilapia because we're developing this product probably. So it's always about the business management of things that we have to come back to every month, despite having, different technology. Our main focus is to define the market for every month, or at least every quarter, because the development is very quick. Like sometimes, okay, this month the shrimp market is big, and then the next month it's very low because there's a disease outbreak, and like the market is very fluctuative, like it's very fluctuating. So it's something that I have to do. I have to really pay attention to the market, because this, like, the aquaculture market is very unstable in a way, but there are lots of opportunities that we can tap into because of the many commodities we have in Indonesia here. Like we have like hundreds of different species that is doing very well in the market, and we can even like export things to other countries. Yeah.
Yeah, this is cool because it's important to analyze the market, right? You need to have all this information to know where you can invest and where you can invest more as well. So Sally, going back to the mobile app, I think this is really cool, especially for the aquaculture, because as you mentioned, you don't need to be there all the time. You can receive all those information. So can you explain us a little bit more about the app? And I was thinking, does Banoo do some training for the farmers to use the app? And also, if they don't have the internet, the service in that time, if they can still receive the data after they get the service, or how it can, how it works when they cannot have the service all the time, or if they have some issues with this.
Yeah. So our mobile app is very much dependent on mobile data or like internet, because it's connected to the sensor, right? So we're using Wi-Fi for that. So that's why for areas that are not penetrated by the internet yet, it's very difficult to access the mobile app, especially. Maybe they can access both microfiche and Fisco, but mobile app is very much dependent on internet. And about like how it works is, do you know, like I don't know if it exists in other countries, but like Bardi Home, or like a remote control that controls our it's like we can turn our lamp or like air conditioner on and off with our phone. So it works like that, but it can control our microfiche and Fisco basically. And we are trying to develop a sensor that can sense the water quality and record the data in real time, but without using too many sensors, because it's pretty expensive. So that it can collect data for predictive analysis for the next cycle, so that we can see that, oh, in this cycle, in every time it hits second week or maybe fourth week of the growing cycle, the pH always drops. So okay, so there's a trend in that. They can sense, or like they can understand what's happening. So it combines the farmer's knowledge, or like gut instinct at least, with a real-time data, so that they can make a more data-driven decision making. And everything is like recorded and can be seen through their smartphone, so they don't have to access too complicated like database in their laptop. They can just see it from their mobile phone. But yeah, you're right, like this is like the limitation is still it's still dependent on internet, but then we also find out that actually internet penetration growth is quicker than electricity penetration growth in Indonesia. So more cities are getting internet, but not every city gets more electricity, so that's why it's a quite opportunity for us actually to push through with the mobile app. So that's a good news.
Yeah. And I was thinking I will do just one more question
No worries.
about that because I think this is really amazing. But do you know if that is how can I say it's a more common issues that the growers can have when they are using the app, for example? I don't know, maybe the pH of the water usually is something that they see more issues, or the temperature or the oxygen.
The main issue is that they actually know when something's happening to their pond, but they don't know what's wrong. So how the sensor will help is to define what's wrong with the pond before it's too late. Because usually the problem is that not that they're not aware, because sometimes like if the pH drops, usually they smell something or the water gets different color. But then they don't realize it until in the morning, until there's like a sunlight. But usually the change happens at night when they're sleeping. So that's why this industry has no business hours. A lot of times, like the farmers have to go to the farm at 3 a.m. just because there's like an electricity cut out, or there's just like a massive fish death happening. So how the app and the sensor will help is that they can sense the danger or like the adverse event immediately, so that they don't have to come to the morning and see that they're too late, so they can treat it immediately, because that's one of the biggest concerns that we learn. So like they always say that we don't need AI yet and stuff now. We just need this a warning system that lets us know when there's something happening in our pond. You don't even have to solve it. We can solve it by ourselves. We just have to know that. We just have to be aware that something's happening before it's too late. So that's it. That's why one of the biggest learning we gathered is that it's not just like advanced technology, automation, and etc. It's more about how we cater, or like how we help the farmers to be more educated, to be more aware of what's happening to their farms, to help them more in tune with their farms, instead of distancing them from the operations, because like some of the automation makes the farmers not even aware of what's going on. So, but our main concern is that we need them to be more, again, closer to the know-how, to what's going on to the farm. But technology is supposed to help them, not to distance them from the operations. So that's one thing that we can help with our technology. And yeah, what's the question again?
No, that's not. I just asked if that is some issue that
Issue.
yes, that the farmers can see more when they are using the app. For example, if it's the pH usually
Yeah.
is something that always show more, or temperature or oxygen, I think.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issue is the oxygen level. It's something that, because it's not visible, right? It's not visible, and usually they don't realize it. They don't realize that oxygen level is very bad, and then suddenly their fish died. So I guess that's one thing that most of our users have been saying is very impactful, is to sense the oxygen level. And because our sensor is like a probe sensor, so they can sense even in the deeper part of the water, and then it gets helped by microfish to increase the water quality to the deepest part of the water, so they can sense how technology is actually helping them. Because if it's only the aerator or like microfish, they don't know the impact. They don't know how we improve the water quality. But with the sensor, they can know that, oh, actually it helps during like at night. When the oxygen level is very low, they can stabilize it, so it's not very different during compared to the afternoon. So yeah, they're kind of like, they see the graphs, right? So they can see that, oh, the impact is actually very significant. And so they can understand why their fish is growing bigger, or like why there's no disease to speak of during the cultivation. And at least they have a more informed decision.
Mhm.
You know, they can decide on something that's not solely based on gut instinct, or like solely based on, usually in Indonesia sometimes it's based on like some kind of like a belief, you know, from the customs and etc. It's a more, again, if like the cool term is precision agriculture, right? Precision farming. But it's more about like yeah, what is it, like data driven, you know, data driven decision making, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really a brilliant idea, like to connecting what the farmers have actually on the pond and show it on the application and make them still be close to the pond itself and not distancing themselves. I was like wondering, in this app, are you also like giving them kind of like a reminder, like when to turn on, turn off the micro bubble?
Yeah, notification.
Yeah,
Notification.
notification.
Our automation is actually have different types. One is based on timer.
Mhm,
If the farmers do not buy the sensor, they can automate it still, but with a timer. Like it turns on maybe every um 9 a.m. and then turn
mm,
off every like in every 10 hours or so.
mhm,
So with that kind of automation, we can notify the farmers that, oh, your microfish will turn on in maybe like half an hour.
mhm,
And then when suddenly the microfish turns off with outside of the automation time,
mhm,
it will also notify the farmers something's wrong with the microfiche, because it's not supposed to be off right now. You know,
mm,
so it's things like that.
mm,
Because it will they can self-analyze, right? So okay, so when the microfiche is off, when it's not supposed to be off, maybe the electricity gets cut off, or
mm,
maybe there's something wrong with the microfiche. So they come to the fish farm only when there's something wrong, instead of usually they have to come every day. So it's like sometimes it's a waste of time, right? Because
mm.
they have to come and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
And really it's quite far from their home. Like the farm is usually quite far from their home. So we're trying to have a more efficient costing to their farm.
Okay. And in the mobile app, do you have like any other information that you show farmers in the dashboard? Maybe like the progress of their fish farm, maybe like production, or I don't know, maybe the market price or something. Or it's more likely the condition, like the environmental condition of the pond itself.
Yeah, for now we're sorry. For now we're focusing more on the upstream, on the production side. Our focus is to how to display the data that our sensor and microfiche collects, and then present it through a graphic. So they have a dashboard, right? A
Mm,
dashboard that shows the condition of their pond. And we have a manual database, so they can manually input the data of their fish growth, and then feed conversion ratio, survival rate, and other parameters that are more about the production instead of the water quality.
Mhm.
But for the marketplace, we are not going in that direction yet because there are already marketplaces, and we are focusing again. Our focus is mainly on water quality,
Mhm.
and for the future plan is to maybe not focus so much on marketplace for the fresh fish, like
Mhm.
the for harvest for the harvest,
Mhm.
but more on the input side. So we will have a marketplace, but for the fish feed and then the other technologies, to help them get the most affordable input for their cultivation. Because one of the problems is that they cannot get quality fish seed,
Mhm.
fish feed, or like what is it, like some kind of supplements that in
Yeah.
their local area. So we have our own focus, and that is on the downstream side of the business. Sorry, the upstream side, sorry, in the pre-harvest period.
Well, I can see Banoo has a lot of things to
Yeah.
provide for the
Farm.
growers, for the farmers.
Mhm.
And Sally, so the industry, right? The Banoo, do you have any plans to uh, have this service or have this technology in other country instead of Indonesian, for example, Brazil and US?
Mhm.
Yeah, sure. Actually, yeah, of course. Um, we see that our technology is very versatile to all conditions, all species. We 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 got some demands and orders from other countries like Ghana, India, Latin America. We are shipping our product now to Ecuador. Actually, it's a big shrimp farm, right, in Ecuador. Um, so we're seeing that we're going to expand quite soon. And it's mostly to aquaculture countries in India, Thailand, uh, Brazil, Ecuador, and such things. And what we need is maybe now on the more on the legal side, because one of the challenge we are facing right now, we have a market, we have defined the operational procedure. Now we're more on the scaling up side, which is also a challenge in itself. Again, we have no industry experience in manufacturing and like IP or things like that. So it's more, we have to learn pretty quickly about how to distribute these electrical devices to other countries, because it's a very strict regulations that we have to face. But yeah, it's a big market, but also it's a big responsibility. So a lot of things that we are dealing right now is not even related to product development or even aquaculture anymore. It's more on that legal, administration, financing, and marketing. So yeah, and not it's the next step to every, I guess, startup, right? Now we're more on the commercialization phase. But that's also what's interesting. So yeah, maybe we can come to Brazil soon. Who knows?
Yeah, to US too. You are also welcome to come here and
Yeah.
introduce the technology because it's really interesting, and I think it's not yet like introducing here, maybe in US or even like in Brazil. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
huge potential.
Yeah. Lots of the micro bubble or nano bubble technology in other countries, they are usually for salmon or like other species. So it's usually expensive. So it's not meant for smallholders. I think we're the first one that designs this, especially for smallholder farmers.
Mhm.
Mm. Yeah, just to mention, but we can cut this in your interview. But my brother, he studied animal science, and actually he worked in the tilapia production for many, many years.
Ah,
And this is something that I was talking to him. I said, I'm gonna interview an industry that work with technology in aquaculture, and he was really interested. So later I'm gonna share this with him.
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
It's
Right.
really
It's always interesting to talk about this industry to other people, even though they don't understand the industry, because we just want them to see that this is actually a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sleeping giant over here in agriculture,
Mm-hmm.
especially in aquaculture. So yeah, always happy to share what we've been doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe we can go.
Okay. So, with this huge potential of like Banoo in the future that you can also already see maybe right now. So, what are you most looking forward out of these all potentials?
I think how it's more about the generational mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Now, more young people are, not that embarrassed to go into this space because of the many technologies introduced, right? I think one of the plus side of technology or agri tech or food tech is that it gives the a new perspective that um food production is actually very cool. Like people are now getting more uh open-minded about, okay, not every technology has to be about automobiles or like social media or fintech or things like that, but food tech is getting more of a audience right now, with again communities like Thought for Food or like competitions, like big competitions like MIT Solve. They're helping more young people to be interested in this industry. And I'm pretty and also for aquaculture especially, it's getting more and more it's getting more attention from the government also. So it's a good opportunity for us too. We're getting more government projects compared to maybe 5 years ago. So one thing is about how people are more willing to collaborate with us. And I think the future of aquaculture is pretty bright because it's now replacing capture fisheries, and it's more sustainable, and people are getting more interested in sustainable food production. So it's getting the attention it needs right now, and it's getting better every year. So I guess um, we can make aquaculture cooler than
Mm-hmm.
it looks like. Yeah, yeah. So it's something exciting, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Yes, Ellie, was really amazing to learn more from you about Banoo and this field as well, because it's really interesting. And
Mm.
if our listeners want to know more about Banoo, where they can find more information, so the website or the LinkedIn.
Yeah, so you can go to the website, but our updates usually are in our Instagram at banu.id and our LinkedIn, Banu Indonesia. So this is usually we also post educational like posts about how to cultivate fish and how to how to use technology for their cultivation, etc. And our what we are doing this month or like this week. So yeah, you can keep up with us or like catch us on our social media. We also have YouTube, so if you want to watch some of our vlogs, and also again educational posts, you can go check out our YouTube.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything we didn't talk about today that you might want to add or mention or share to our listeners?
Well, I think I already talked too much. I've been talking for
But
hours
it's
now.
really inspiring actually for us, especially like the young generation to show like, okay, this is a role model that we can see and see she can do it. So we can also try to learn from her.
Yeah, yeah. So it's all about being a role model of each other, right? So
Uh-huh.
I always look up to some of the startup founders in Indonesia and other countries because I joined the communities for like Thought for Food, and there are some kind of like startup founders in Indonesia that I feel inspired from, like the CEO of eFishery or like some of the CEOs of the aquaculture startup. I feel like they're very cool because they also didn't come from aquaculture, but they still have the dedication to improve the industry, and they did it. And I just feel like, okay, so if they can, then I also can do it. And it is kind of like a inspiration. What is it like a
Motivation.
yeah, yeah, motivation. It's motivation because sometimes I feel like, okay, like I don't know how aquaculture works. Should I continue? And then I look at them again, and I just, yeah, they can do that. I can do that too. It's just like as easy as that.
Yeah, for sure your background and your, everything that you built during this year, it's a big motivation for many people, for sure. And
I
Sally,
hope so.
no, for sure it is. And a tradition on the FarmBits podcast is to ask a piece of advice. So, can you give some advice for students and people that want to work with aquaculture research?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a big question because I don't even know what to what to tell myself until now. But I guess it's just a matter of having a community and knowing where to, or like knowing what you're doing, because aquaculture again is a sleeping giant, but you you have to be aware that for everyone, for people to come to this industry, they have to be very passionate in what they're doing and not motivated by money or like by um uh materialistic things, because the ones who survived in this traditional industry is someone who is really passionate about feeding the world, or like feeding feeding their families themselves. Because like what I learned from the farmers themselves is that they're very empathetic people. So for you to survive, or if you want to succeed in introducing your technology, you don't have to be smart, you don't have to be intellectually smart, you have to be emotionally intelligent. You have to be what your key key skills that you have to possess um, to introduce technology in this industry is empathy and also compassion for your market. Because no matter how advanced or like how you know evolutionary your technology is, it doesn't matter if you cannot feel, or like you cannot empathize with your users, which are the farmers. So understand who you're selling to, or like understand your market, and not and also be close to them, and develop your product, or like develop your solutions not based on your own knowledge, but focus on your market, focus on the farmers themselves. That's how you will get the most valuable lessons in your industry. Yeah, I think that's one piece of advice I can give from my experience.
Thank you very much to Sally for taking the time to join this episode of the FarmBits podcast. It is really exciting to learn how the aquaculture technology is in Indonesia. One of my favorite parts of this episode was how Banoo provide affordable technology for fish farmers and cope with the challenges.
I also think that learning how Banoo started and what motivated them was amazing. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we look forward to sharing another digital egg story with you next week on FarmBits.
Thank you for taking the time to join us today on the FarmBits podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts to be informed about the latest content each week.
We welcome your feedback. So if you have comments or questions for us, please reach out to us over email, on Twitter, or in the interview sections of your favorite podcast platform. Our contact information can be found in the show notes.
We would like to thank Nebraska Extension for their support of this podcast and their commitment to providing high-quality informational material to members of the agricultural community in Nebraska and beyond.
The opinions expressed by the hosts and guests on this podcast are solely their own and do not reflect the views of Nebraska Extension or the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
We look forward to you joining us next week for another episode of FarmBits.